So we tell us to come tomorrow, come next tomorrow, next tomorrow. So at last they advised me to go and report him for Use Zuntiri. That's where they give me my money.
Innocent Bariku said that Ponzi schemes are traps, adding that Nigerians should avoid any scheme that promises huge profits with little or no risk.
We don't need to invest in all those things that maybe one day everything will go out there, you end up getting anything. So I advise that people should refrain from it and then invest properly where you can have benefits from.
The SEC says it's already investigating 79 suspected Ponzi operations nationwide and has blacklisted 10 fraudulent platforms this year alone. Officials warn that while these schemes often disguise themselves as crypto, forex, or digital assets, they are simply designed to collapse once enough money is collected. Ubong Usoro, reporting for Global Television.
Nigeria's Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, Bosun Tijani, has called on African governments to coordinate their efforts in building artificial intelligence infrastructure and governance, stating that without such collaboration, the continent risks widening its already yawning productivity gap with the rest of the world. He made the remark at a four-day technology event aimed at celebrating digital transformation and innovation across the country. Tijani drew parallel with agriculture, where Nigeria produces about 2.5 tons of maize per hectare, compared to 6 tons of South Africa and 12 tons in Brazil. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors has issued a fresh 10-day ultimatum to the federal government and other relevant authorities, warning of an imminent nationwide strike if its outstanding demands are not addressed. The resolution was contained in a communique signed by the association's president, Dr. Tokwe Oshundara, and other members of the executive following an extraordinary National Executive Council, that is ENEC meeting, held virtually on Sunday. The association recalled that it had earlier given a three-week ultimatum in July before extending the deadline by another 3 weeks to also allow for further dialogue with stakeholders. However, it expressed disappointment that the government has yet to fulfill its promises. The federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to strengthening Nigeria's health financing system to ensure universal health coverage for all citizens. Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Isiaq Salako, gave the assurance in Abuja at the National Health Financing Policy Dialogue, said the forum was crucial for shaping the country's future health financing landscape. Salako noted that the dialogue underscored Nigeria's determination to prioritize citizens' health through innovation and sustainable financing mechanisms. The United Nations Children's Fund, that is UNICEF, and the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, have confirmed that Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world, with 1 in every 5 such children globally being Nigerian. They say the situation is more severe in northern Nigeria, where conflict, poverty, and socio-cultural factors continue to deny many children access to education. Our correspondent, Zarao Nasir, takes a look at the situation in this report.
According to UNICEF, despite primary education being officially free and compulsory, about 10.5 million Nigerian children between the ages of 5 and 14 are currently not enrolled in school. Statistics also show that only 61% of children aged 6 to 11 regularly attend primary school, while just 35.6% of children aged 36 to 59 months have access to early childhood education. In an interview with some parents in Abuja, they explained that poverty is a major factor with many unable to face school-related expenses for their wards.
The federal government should please subsidize education. It's not only fuel or blah, 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 blah. There is crisis in education. There is big crisis. People cannot afford to pay school fees. School fees are so much. How much is are you earning before you can pay school fees?
It can be out of reach, maybe in the region where the parents are, they don't have access to school, or insecurity issue, and there's poverty, and also out of reach. Maybe
there is inadequate provision for schools, and poverty to an extent is another factor of population, you know. So we need to do more.
Look at the situation of the country's situation. You understand? The economy is so poor that hardly men feed their families these days. You understand? Most families could not feed themselves. They cannot have 3 square meals again. You understand? So therefore of paying school fees and still everything skyrocketed. You understand? When they ask.
Concerned Nigerians have called on government and stakeholders to take urgent steps in addressing the challenge, stressing that children who should be acquiring education are being left behind.
Government supports. Check the neighboring countries. We have better life. You go to US, UK, you have an indigenous child that has a birthright there. The parents get support from the government.
By making education to be cheaper and availability of schools and create awareness.
As this topic continues to elicit mixed emotions, a call to action is placed on parents, teachers, community and religious leaders, as well as the government, to make education a priority and rewrite the narrative for Nigeria's education sector. Zahra Nasser, reporting for Global TV News.
The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has urged Nigerian youths to partner with the armed forces and other stakeholders in addressing the country's growing security and socio-economic challenges. Speaking at a civil society summit in Abuja, the General Musa, represented by Commodore Rotimi Aderemi, urged young Nigerians to take ownership of the fight against emerging threats, including cybercrime, terrorism, oil theft, electricity and telecom theft, piracy, illegal mining, deforestation, violent extremism, and human rights violations. He noted that while the armed forces remain committed to defending the nation, lasting solutions to the insecurity requires the active participation of citizens, particularly the youth, whose creativity and energy represent a powerful tool for positive change. In another development, Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa had hailed the conviction of Simon Ekpa by a finished court, stressing that the judgment reinforces the principle that those who incite violence and found terrorism will be held accountable regardless of their location. The Bajat Ham District Court in Finland sentenced Ekpa to 6 years imprisonment for terrorism-related offences. Reacting to the judgment, Musa described the ruling as a landmark victory in the global campaign against terrorism and violent extremism. Governor Mohammed Umar Bago of Niger State has dissolved the State Executive Council with immediate effect. The announcement was made at the opening of the council meeting held at the Government House Chamber in Mina, as the governor retained key principal officers in his office, including the Secretary to the State Government, Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff, and other senior aides. He directed all commissioners to hand over to their respective permanent secretaries without delay, while commending the outgoing commissioners for their contribution to the development of the state and wish them success in their future endeavors. You're watching the live broadcast of News Prime. When News Prime returns, the Danish court sentenced ex-minister to prison for child abuse. Details coming shortly, plus business and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from that break. Now, let's take you to the world of business, where the federal government, through the Debt Management Office, is offering investors annual yield of up to 16.54% on its September 2025 Federal Government of Nigeria Savings Bond. The DMO, in a circular on its website, announced that the subscription window opens immediately and will close on Friday, September 5, 2025, while settlement scheduled for September 10, 2025. Coupon payment will be made quarterly on May 10, June 10, September 10, and December 10, and will be paid directly to investors. Baffled by the incessant collapse of the national grid, the federal government has issued an order mandating all electricity generation companies connected to the grid to implement free governor control across the generating units, warning that non-compliance would attract heavy penalties, including disconnection from the grid. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, the order will take effect on September 1, 2025. In power generation, a governor is a control system that regulates the speed or output of a turbine or generator. The federal government says May federal workers are unable to access its housing loan scheme because they have mortgaged their salaries through multiple loans from commercial lending agencies. The Executive Secretary of the Federal Government Staff Housing Loan Board, Hajia Ahmad, disclosed this at the Permanent Secretary's Quarterly Forum with union leaders, organized by the Service Welfare Office of the Head of Service of the Federation recently. Ahmed made an explanation that the heavy loan deduction from worker salary made them ineligible for housing loans. And now on the foreign scene, in Ghana, hundreds of protesters have taken to the street of Accra, demanding the cancellation of Africans' ballooning debt. Labor Union says the current system is suffocating development across the continent, but governments argue the situation is more complex. Mukhtar Hassan reports.
Wearing red and black, chanting patriotic songs and waving placards, protesters marched through Accra. The demonstration, led by Ghana's Trade Union Congress and backed by the ITCU Africa, called for a radical overhaul of the global debt system. Africa's external debt has now surpassed $1.3 trillion, with more than 20 countries, including Ghana, restructuring their obligations.
Why should African countries borrow so expensive as compared to its peers in other parts of the world? Why should it be? Why should the risk premium for African countries be so different from Europe, America, and other parts of the world? Why should that be?
But labor leaders say the debt burden has already become unbearable for ordinary citizens. Ghana, Africa's leading producer of gold and second largest cocoa exporter, is still recovering from its 2022 default and inflation crisis that peaked above 50%.
We are not able to develop because when we get money, we use it to service them. When we get money, it goes to people who we are owing. So we are not able to build schools. We are not able to service our children. We are not able to increase salaries of workers. So workers today, we are not fighting for anything around salary. We are only calling for global debt cancellation for African governments and African countries.
The anger has spilled beyond Ghana. In Namibia, unionists joined the call for debt relief, saying African workers should not be punished for decades of financial mismanagement. Civil society groups say debt distress is not just an economic problem, but a development and governance crisis.
We are also ensuring that any trade agreement or investment agreement must be inclusive of social protections, worker rights, and any exploitation from Africa mineral resources
must be agreed on our terms. So we are...
In 23 African countries, debt servicing now outpaces spending on health and education. For now, protesters are demanding total and unconditional cancellation of Africa's debt, describing it as an act of reparative justice. With petitions already before government, the battle over Africa's debt future is set to intensify. Mukhtar Qasim, reporting for Global Television News.
A former Danish government minister was jailed for 4 months for possession of thousands of images of child sexual abuse. Henrik Sass Larsen, once a senior social democrat, was served as an industry minister, admitted to having more than 6,000 photographs of 2,000 videos of his computer depicting sexual abuse of children. He had denied the charges, saying he had the material because he was trying to find out who had abused him as a child. And now quickly, let's get to the world of sport, where the Super Eagles camp will open on Monday in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State capital, for the 2026 World Cup qualifying matches against Rwanda and South Africa, just as the Rwandans are billed to arrive in Nigeria on Tuesday ahead of Saturday's clash. Nigeria will face Rwanda in a must-win clash on Saturday before traveling to Bafana Bafana in another crucial clash between 3 days later. After 6 matches, the Super Eagles are fourth in their qualifying Group C with 7 points, 6 points behind South Africa, who led the group with 13 points. As Global TV News Prime comes to an end, let's take a look at our top stories. President Bola Tinubu has assured Nigerians that his government is resolute in delivering the dividends of democracy as promised when he took over power. And in business, the federal government, through the Debt Management Office, is offering investors annual yield of up to 16.541% in September 2025 Federal Government of Nigeria Savings Bond. And on the foreign scene, a former Danish government minister was jailed for 4 months for possession of thousands of images of child abuse. And finally, from the world of sport, British boxing great Joe Bonga has died at the age of 75. And that's it on News Prime. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using @Global TV NG. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Thank you for watching.